So let's talk about Marineford. An arc so amazing that is consensually viewed as one of the best arcs of all time. Some people go as far as to say it's one of the best arcs of all time. Simply speaking, it is the best war arc of all time. Or is it? Let me introduce you to a contender you probably never heard about. The Coalition arc is probably the best arc you've never watched. So yeah, let's see which war arc is better, Marineford or Coalition. To determine which arc is better, Marineford or Coalition, 3 criteria are going to be used. The first one is wow factor, a combination of the hype moments and the fights in the arc. The second one is the storytelling, and lastly, we have the pacing. Best out of 3 wins is pretty straightforward, so let's see which arc is the better arc. The first category we're going to go over is wow factor. And I just want to start with saying that Marineford is a spectacle. Something straight out of the heavens or some shit like that. Like, don't get me wrong, we all had an idea of how insane the arc was gonna be leading up to it, but my expectations were blown away. You look at the immediate lead up to the arc where we see random civilians talking about how this could be the end of the world, to seeing all the marines, shibukai and admirals. Yeah, this arc gets you hyped up. Boy does it deliver. Just in the first couple of chapters, we see Whitebeard create a tsunami, Akainu raining down meteors from the sky, the phoenix fruits, the diamond fruits, and hell, we even get a glimpse of how strong Mihawk could potentially be. I mean, what else could you say? What a fucking start. All this type of hype stuff wasn't even necessarily new at this point of the story. I mean, we have seen a ship fall out of the sky, hordes of sea kings, a city made out of gold, the sky being split, a giant zombie monster. The only difference is that we used to get those events like maybe once an arc and they were far in between, but we were getting these type of events back to back to back to back. It just really set the stage of how grand the world was gonna be. Don't get it twisted though, we still had niggas throwing hands there. The war was damn near like an NBA All-Star game. The only difference is that folks were actually taking this shit seriously and trying. Like, niggas is actually squabbling for real here. Now, Marineford isn't necessarily the full package. Sure, there's hype moments damn near everywhere and every time. In typical Oda fashion, all these encounters are almost exclusively clashes and never actually a fight. As a matter of fact, in the whole arc, I think there are only 3 encounters you could call a fight. Jinbe vs Moria, Akainu vs Whitebeard, and Whitebeard vs Blackbeard. Not the most inspiring catalog if I'm being for real. I mean, I think it's pretty much a miss that we didn't see any of the Whitebeard commanders in an actual fight. And what makes it worse is that it's not like Oda was saving these niggas for later. I mean, we saw Marco and Izo in Wano, and they didn't even get a fight there. So it was like, okay, so why didn't any of them get a fight in Marineford? Like, come on, Oda, like, why? So honestly, that was a waste. And you can tell that Oda was doing all he can do to avoid putting a fight in. He literally used Mihawk. Like, what do you mean, oh, let's fight later, we don't need to fight right now? Bro, Oda literally used Mihawk to tell us that, nah, I ain't gonna give you all a fight, so fuck out of here. Like, bro, come on, Oda. It's literally a war, Oda. Like, just more than 3 fights is cool. Like, I think out of all the excuses that Oda has used to off-screen fight to avoid putting fights entirely, that one had to be the most shameless one. Like, the Mihawk one is very shameless. Still though, all of this doesn't really take away from the Marineford arc. Like I said, the amount of moments we get in this arc more than make up for the lack of fights. Some later on moments are Ace dying, Luffy crossing into the plaza, Whitebeard's final speech, Shanks showing up. I mean, when your catalog of hype moments are some of the most recognizable and inspiring ones in all of anime history, you can definitely get away without having too many fights in a war arc. And to be fair, the Whitebeard vs Akainu fight is up there in terms of one character bodying another character type of fights in anime. I'd comfortably say it's better than Levi vs the Beast Titan or Gon vs P2 or Gohan vs Cell. So yep, if you have a fight that's top 3 or top 5 in a certain genre, you're definitely doing something amazing. Now, I understand the large majority of you that clicked this video probably haven't heard, let alone watch Kingdom. And my guess is there's probably a small minority of you that are aware of Kingdom and how amazing of a series it is. And if you know everything I'm talking about, just skip to the next timestamp. Out of all the new anime you could watch right now, or manga you could read right now, I am super confident that none of them will be able to match up to Kingdom in terms of quality. Mind you, I'm just strictly speaking in terms of quality. I know how much cash in the bank Kingdom actually has. I don't want to go full geek mode on you, but Kingdom is in the top 15 of all time when it comes to manga sales. It has more manga sales than super popular series like Baki, My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, and Hunter x Hunter. Kingdom has consistently ranked in the top 10 for manga sales for about a decade now, with it ranking in the top 5 for a good chunk of those years. As a matter of fact, Kingdom actually peaked as the second best-selling manga in 2020, managing to outsell One Piece but eventually falling short to Demon Slayer in its record-breaking year. And yeah, we all know like Demon Slayer almost damn near sold 100 million copies in 2020, so yeah, that's just like extremely out of the ordinary. That's a super outlier. I bring this up because, yeah, sure, in the 2020s, One Piece isn't the #1 selling manga anymore, but before that, it was very, and I mean extremely rare for a manga to sell more copies than One Piece in a fiscal year. Like, I'm just give some context. Attack on Titan in its peak, like around 2013 and 2014, it actually never sold One Piece once. So the fact that Kingdom was actually able to outsell One Piece but fall short to Demon Slayer, that's a testament to how many people love and read Kingdom. Now, I'm not the type of person that puts all my stock in manga sales. I agree that there's definitely a lot of ways to gauge and judge how great a series is, but I bring this manga sales up to point out that, quite frankly, you're sleeping. Just the way a lot of y'all was sleeping on One Piece, y'all are sleeping on Kingdom right now. And you know the funny thing, at least those three, like Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, the big three, you could say they're contemporaries and whatever one is better, like that's up to you. Anyone gotta like be mad at you for whatever way you choose. I think I could say that out of all of its contemporaries, Kingdom is actually better than most of them, like 99% of all of them. You want an amazing protagonist that's easy to fall in love with and root for? Check. You want an interesting story that pulls you into the world and keeps you invested? Check. You want high stakes drama that keeps you on the edge of your seats all the time? Check. I can go on and on and on about how Kingdom is so amazing with all this type of stuff. Like in Kingdom, female characters are given major narrative emphasis instead of just being fan service or plot tool. And for my manga readers, Kingdom simply has some of the best arts you will ever see. I think you get the point now. Kingdom is a generational series, and yeah, you're definitely sleeping on it. With all that being said though, it's actually not your fault that you're sleeping. Like, it isn't your fault, man. There's a lot of reasons and factors to why you haven't heard of Kingdom till this point. And the main culprit has to be the horrible first 2 seasons of the anime. Like, it's so bad, it's just a CGI slugfest and it's terrible to watch. Not to even mention they skipped the whole arc. This makes getting into the series extremely tedious and extremely hard. And it even gets worse, Kingdom has no official manga volumes. So even if you say, oh, I want to read Kingdom, you can't actually buy a Kingdom manga and read it. Like, you gotta go to like an illegal site to get it. Coupled with other things like minimal marketing, the extremely long length. I think Kingdom has like 800 chapters now, which makes it longer than series like Naruto and Bleach. All of this just makes Kingdom stay in forever obscurity. I think there is a possibility of it developing a niche fan base over time, like the Berserk fans or the Vagabond fans. But even at this point right now, that still seems pretty far off, and I think Kingdom is probably not going to be known by a lot of people for a long time. In the Coalition arc, we have a balanced mix of hype moments and fights. It gives off the similar all-star vibes Marineford had. For starters, this is probably, if not the only arc where all of the Queen Generals come together to fight. I said it's similar to an all-star vibe, but I'll say it's more of an Avengers Assemble type beat. As impressive as the Coalition Generals were in the war, they didn't really have have the same hype and build up leading into the arc that would have had you more excited about seeing them in combat for the first time. You look at Marineford and damn near every person that participated in the war had some sort of build up before the war, whether it was significant or tepid. But like I said, the coalition war still gets the job done pretty good for the most part. I mean, we got an amazing fight, which is arguably one of the best fights in the series, that being Mobu versus Kanmei. If I had to describe this fight, it's just really a clash to see who's stronger, better, and whose will to win is greater. We've seen this type of battle before with Luffy versus Katakuri and Jotaro versus Dio. It's a simple but an effective type of fight that's made all the more thrilling because the opposing sides have similar abilities. This isn't even the only fight in the series that's amazing. We have fights like Shin versus Hoken, Ryukyu versus Hoken. Yeah, that nigga Hoken is a menace. Like, he had 2 fights. He's a menace. Don't get it twisted though, just because we have amazing fights, the moments in Kingdom are still peak. There's Sei rallying the commoners to fight against Riboku's army, Ryukyu's last words to Shin, Yotanwa and the mountain people showing up at the very last minute to save Sei, and Osun preventing Hungry Pass from falling. There's a lot of peak moments in this arc that more than carries its weight and makes this arc really shine. They just don't have the hype that a lot of other peak moments from other anime have. So if I try to tell you that one moment from Kingdom is better than, let's say, this moment from Naruto or this moment from One Piece, you're just gonna think I'm crazy. You're gonna just dismiss me immediately and say I'm capping just because the moments from those shows have way more people that can vouch for it and say it's great. I know a lot of you probably haven't seen a lot of the peak moments from Kingdom, but you gotta take my word for it. You're definitely peak. With all that being said, I'll still give the edge to Marineford in the wow factor category. While the coalition arc is absolutely loaded for the most part from top to bottom, the same can also be said for Marineford, and I believe Marineford peaks at higher moments compared to the coalition arc. It's super duper close though. I believe though that a lot of the previous build up elevates the moments in Marineford when you do see them. This gives the edge to Marineford over the coalition arc in the wow factor category. Marineford takes this round and the score is 1-0. This is the section I've been most excited to talk about, so yeah, let's get into it. Because honestly, what is the art of war? Like, don't get me wrong, the depiction of how the war went down in Marineford, it ain't bad, it's not horrible, but it's meh at best. Okay, not even meh, but it's actually very basic. Like, it's pretty basic. There's nothing wrong with the siege in the first place. It's just that the execution was lackluster, if we're being real. Like, their whole strategy was to arrive at Marineford and just go guns blazing and try and save Ace. Bruh, no moves, no finesse, no nothing. Like, what were y'all thinking? I'm so confused. It's just so incredibly brain dead. I can't even imagine the amount of random pirates that were charging towards the plaza and they got killed by random cannon fire, or like Alkainu's magma meteors that are raining from the earth. Like, bare people were just dying. Bro, like, you know the plan was dog shit when Marco literally tried to fly straight from the plaza to the scaffold and Grab just punched him away like, yeah, fuck out of here, nigga, you ain't doing that. The plan was literally run towards the plaza, y'all sacrifice yourselves, I will try and save Ace. Like, come on, bro, that's just peak incompetence. Like, what are we doing? That's a horrible plan. Like, it's nothing towards it. Like, guys, I need to understand how bad of a plan this was. You don't even really need to think that deep to just pick it apart and see how many holes were in this plan. Firstly, how are y'all going to be able to get to the scaffold in the first place? Secondly, how would you guys have freed Ace if you didn't have the key? Like, how is that going to work? And thirdly, what would you have actually done if the Marines decided to speed up the execution? Which actually happened in the first place, and the White Bear Pirates got bailed out in the most fluky way possible. One by Crocodile helping for no reason, even though he tried to kill White Bear just previously. And the second one with like Luffy using Conqueror's Haki, which like 1 in a million people have. So that's just like a fluky scenario. Like, literally Ace could have been killed and nobody would have been able to do anything about it. Absolutely no plan to get this job done. Like, they didn't have any way to free Ace. They were just hoping for the best. Like, come on, bro. It got so bad that Whitebeard was like, you know what, boys? Fuck it. Y'all just help Luffy. He's gonna help free Ace. Bro, like the rookie there, y'all are like, okay, we believe in you. You get the job done. That's like so bad. Y'all like Yonko crew and you're like, nah, you know what? We're gonna leave it to like a rookie. Like, come on, what are we doing, bro? Like, this niggas literally came into the war on some what the White Bay Pirates type shit, and yeah, we gonna buddy everybody. Meanwhile, they got buddied by the Marines. Like, the fact that the Marines actually allowed Ace to get rescued, that is actually horrible, atrocious work. Bro, that's damn near almost like blowing a 3-0 lead. Y'all had every advantage and this nigga still managed to free Ace. Yeah, like if Akainu didn't kill Ace, that would have been like an absolute failure. I could go on and on and on about like how incompetent the Whitebeard Pirates plan was from like a story perspective if you just look at it. But you know what? I'm gonna just leave it. The Coalition arc, he handles things differently. You look at how War is handling the Coalition arc, and these niggas were deep in their bag. Like, I'm talking Shay 40 points, breaking niggas' ankles, hitting the meaty, knocking down the 3 against the paint. Like, I'm talking deep in that way. Pause. But yeah, y'all get what I mean. Oh my god, where can I even start? Like, even the whole run and gun technique that the Whitebeard Pirates use, you know, like, just run towards our objective. It doesn't matter if I get killed. It doesn't matter if anything happens. Like, that whole run and gun technique, even that is done better in the Coalition arc. Like, the most meathead nigga in Other Kingdom mobile. Like, this nigga uses no tactics, no nothing. He was still like, okay, I gotta at least, you know, finesse this a bit. And he decided to use an Echelon sweep. Even though he didn't cook it up, but he realized that, yeah, like, I gotta do something about this. Like, I can't just charge in head on. Like, I'm gonna get slaughtered. And yeah, that's what I'm saying, that even the most basic thing, he has a bit of tactic, he has a bit of strategy to it. Not to even mention people like Olsen and Riboku cooking up guerrilla warfare tactics to use. There's a lot going on here that makes you go, oh wow, that is the art of war. Like, there's strategy here, there's tactics here, there's all sorts of stuff here. And the way everything is incorporated makes you realize, like, wow, this is actually a war. Like, this could either be lost or won. All the stakes are here. It really is a thing of beauty and masterful storytelling. Now, I realize that analyzing how the war played out is not the only way to analyze the storytelling of the Marineford arc, as you can definitely argue that the main focus for Marineford was more of the emotional emphasis to try to free Ace rather than the actual execution to try and free him. Even though Oda has shown that he does take time to plot on the execution of warlike events in other arcs, but I digress. From a narrative perspective, we all know that Marineford is a climax arc, where the payoff for everything that's been built up for hundreds of chapters is finally resolved. And this is done rather successfully in Marineford. For starters, this is actually one of the few arcs where there are actual consequences and no fake out deaths. And I repeat, no fake out deaths. Different characters get shine, an example being Garp. We get to see the emotional turmoil he's going through in the arc and how much of an effect seeing someone that he's viewed as a child is going to be killed right in front of him and he can't even do anything about it. We even see Kobe deal with the horrors of war and how much of a traumatic and psychological effect that has on somebody. Marineford does a lot of great stuff narratively. So yeah, even though the whole execution of the war is shaky at best from the Whitebeard Pirates sides especially, I think the Marines did a good job with tactics and trying to stall the pirates. I think they did a pretty good job there, but that's not really the point. I still believe that narratively, the arc shines in other aspects, so yeah, that's worth highlighting. While Marineford is a climax arc, the Coalition War is actually a spontaneous arc. Instead of wrapping up existing threads, it opens the door to even more possibilities and expands the world of Kingdom while deepening the stakes. It does this so well and ties up all the narrative elements in such an amazing way. If I had to put it in 2 words, it's handled in a way that's organized and palatable, and that's very impressive because this arc is a very long and massive arc. So to put so many narrative elements and tile them very well, bro, that's very impressive. Like, you gotta give props for that. You get the feeling that this is a war from the very beginning all the way to the end, from battlefield to battlefield, whether it's Shin contemplating about the casualties of war and who bears the consequences of innocent people dying, or Chao Tu going over how he might not have been special like other Queen generals, but still he decides he will leave a legacy and impact for the next generation. All sorts of different type of narrative points come together extremely well here to give you the spectacle that is the Coalition War, which makes it damn near a perfect arc from a storytelling perspective, from the war perspective and the narrative perspective. Marineford, it's good on the narrative perspective, but on the war perspective, it's kind of shaky. So for me, the storytelling section goes to the Coalition arc, which means the score is tied 1-1 heading into the final section. The pacing of Marineford is actually very similar to the pacing of another arc you should be familiar with, and that is Shibuya. It's just non-stop action from the beginning to the end. It probably isn't as fast-paced as Shibuya though, just because Marineford has the buggy falling into the success moment, which is usually used as a break and a way to insert humor into the arc. I actually really like these moments because I believe the buggy gag is one of the better gags in One Piece, but I do recognize that the gag might not be for everyone and it might actually be annoying having those breaks, especially during in between actions, and it's just like we switch the buggy and we're like, why, bro? Like, come on, bro, I'm trying to get to like what's happening. So I do recognize that that might not be for you, but personally I like it. Like, it's a good gag, it's a nice change of pace and stuff like that. But yeah, Marineford is very similar to Shibuya in the sense that we just get a crescendo of events that keep on building up and building up until we eventually get to the climax, which is obviously Shanks stopping the war. I would say though that it can be chaotic and all over the place at times, but I actually believe this fits the nature of the whole war. Like, everything is supposed to be chaotic, everything is supposed to be sporadic. Like, that's the sense of vibe we're supposed to get. So that really actually works in favor of Marineford pacing wise, and it's because of this chaotic nature that we actually feel the sense of tension and urgency to free Ace during the arc. It just feels like anything could happen. They could execute Ace in the next chapter, Whitebeard could body somebody in the other chapter. Like, a lot of stuff are happening here and there and here, so you don't really know what's happening, and you're like, okay, we need to free Ace because anything can happen and he can die before we can do anything to stop it. It's done so well that I believe to this day Marineford still has the most tension in any One Piece arc. I could probably only think of 2 or 3 arcs that maybe have the same amount of tension, but even I'm not sure that they do really. Some examples that come to mind was the Big Mom Pirates launching a crusade against the Straw Hats, or even the Egghead Island incident. But it's worth to note that those 2 examples are actually instances in an arc and not the whole arc. The whole of Marineford from beginning to end has the tension. Like, those incidents are at the climax of the arc, it's not the whole arc. So I don't think it's like a one-to-one comparison, if I'm being for real. Like with Shibuya though, it's fair to say that the extremely fast pace does have its weaknesses. And I think the most noticeable one is that a lot of characters suffer from a lack of screen time and attention. I know I previously said that the Whitebeard commanders got the short end of the stick when it came to attention and just being NPCs, if we're being for real, but other characters suffer too. Examples being Aokiji and Kizaru. They just basically popped in and popped out for the whole entire arc. It gets so egregious to a point that you actually notice that these guys are standing around doing nothing. The most notable instance of this is when Akainu was chasing after Luffy. When you watch this scene, you get the impression that, oh, Akainu is the only guy here, as he was left to fight all the Whitebeard commanders by himself. But when Luffy is in Lost Submarine, all of a sudden Kizaru and Aokiji show up to try and stop the submarine, and it's like, wait, y'all were here this whole entire time? Why didn't you just team up with Akainu from the very beginning to stop Luffy from escaping? Why did you wait till like the last possible second? And that's what I mean, like, they just pop in and pop out for convenience sake. Like, they're actually supposed to actively do more, but they're not there. Like, it's either like a lack of attention or just, I don't know, like, maybe it could just be bad storytelling. But I think it's more of like the pacing issue. You can't fit every character there, so some characters get the short end of the stick. And yes, because of the overcrowded cast, a lot of characters get rendered to random NPCs. Another thing is that because the arc is so fast-paced, I feel like a lot of moments actually get minimized and are not given the shine that they deserve. The clash between Doflamingo and Crocodile, Akainu murking hundreds of pirates, and Luffy taking the healing hormone from Ivankov. These are all big events that if it happened in another arc, it would be a huge deal. But we just gloss over them, and it's like, damn, that was actually crazy at the time. But you're not really given enough time to soak it in. Like, we're moving so fast to the next thing. So that's a slight criticism when it comes to the pacing too. Now, for the Coalition arc, pacing wise, it's actually very similar to Marineford. I mean, in both arcs, we dive headfirst into the action with minimal time wasted. The way both wars play out pacing wise is very different though. There's more of a gradual and careful build up of events in the Coalition war. Not to mention that things are just way more calculated rather than chaotic. Now, just because things are careful and planned out, it doesn't mean that things are moving slowly. Actually, it's the opposite. Things are moving rather fast, but there's like a balance here. And it's because of this balance that you get to appreciate what's going on more. Like, all the major and big events are spaced out just right. So when one of them happens, you get the time to soak it in and appreciate it. Like, you don't gloss over to the next thing. Like, it's not just quick fast stuff. Like, you actually get to soak in an event and be like, oh shit, that was actually crazy. Then, you know, you get to move on to the next one. Like, you're giving a breather. This careful balance also makes the arc excel in another way, and that's ample screen time for damn near all the characters. Characters are not just rendered NPCs, and they're actually given opportunity to shine, whether it be narratively or through hype moments. I mean, Shin has 2 rivals, and they got the shine, the attention, and everything they deserve in this arc, which could have easily been glossed over and not put an emphasis on, but no, we actually got the time to see these 2 guys shine. Now, the pacing of the Coalition arc is not perfect by any means, just like any other arc. This is still a large-scale war. You can always highlight some moments where things drag along, particularly in the middle of the war where the Coalition army is like, oh, we're gonna wait for like 2 weeks to do a war of attrition, then launch a full-scale attack. Like, things definitely slow and grind down there. Even the climax too, you could argue that, yeah, things slow down there. So we do have those points in the arc, and those are valid complaints and criticisms. But honestly, after doing a deep dive analysis, that's really the only thing I could think of. And that's why when it comes to pacing, I actually give it to the Coalition arc here. And that's because it does something great that's a glaring issue in Marineford, and that's the overcrowded cast and a lot of people not getting ample screen time and just being rendered into NPCs. The Coalition arc does not really have that problem, if at all. Like, every other thing could be considered nitpicking, but that certain thing isn't. Like, it's actually pretty glaring that, oh yeah, a lot of other characters needed screen time in the Marineford arc. Like, that's a valid criticism. Which is kind of tough though, because I believe Marineford is actually the best paced arc in the whole of One Piece. Like, it is amazing. Like, if more arcs were paced like Marineford, Wado would be a 10 out of 10, Dressrosa would be a 10 out of 10. I think Oda should lean more into that pacing, but it doesn't mean that Marineford doesn't have its flaws too. Kingdom doesn't really have this issue with an overcrowded cast. Like I said, everybody gets screen time that they justly deserve, and everything else is kind of like dead even, if we're being honest. It's just that one slight thing that I could say, okay, yeah, the Coalition arc actually does this better than the Marineford arc, and that's why for me I give the score of pacing to the Coalition arc, which brings the final score 2-1, making the Coalition arc the better war arc. All of this is just my opinion, this is just my analysis. It doesn't mean I'm correct. You can believe Marineford is better. But yeah, what arc do you think is better? And while you're at it, check this other video where I compare these 2 arcs. Peace, guys. Have a good day.